What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. Week 14 Sunday is in the books. We've got Chris Allen coming up here shortly to talk through all the big games today. There were a ton of big games in the NFL today, some monumental results, both for your fantasy football playoff race and for the real NFL playoffs. But before we get to Chris, before we get to the games that we care about, the games that we sort of care about, and the email games, we've got to talk through Sunday night football, and what an evening this one was. Texans 20, Chiefs 10. Before we get into the individual sides here, and we'll start with the winners as we always do, just got to say, my God, that game made me feel happy to be alive. That was awesome. That felt like a big playoff game. The stakes were high. The intensity was there. These guys were hitting. There was some ferocity. Every decision was scrutinized. Little minute details for each side with these two teams. It was a big deal. Loved it. It was a great game. Absolutely made me feel happy to be at this point of the season. Look, I love football from freaking September. August, okay? When we get the little taste, the little appetizer of the preseason games all the way through. I love football. I do. It's a great sport, great game. Love it, love it. Love having this job. But these games are really fun to talk about. These games that are so consequential to the postseason, the ones that really count between two teams fighting for those playoff spots, those playoff positions. This is really where you love this game, and I feel happy talking about these ones. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get into these two specific sides, starting as we always do with the winners here, Houston Texans. This was a just rugged ass performance by this team. I mean, number one, we've got to talk about the defense. That defense is so electric in Houston. They were all over it. Okay. Since week 4, this team has only lost twice. They had the horrible 0-3 start. Or did they start 0-4? Yeah, I mean, this is not a good start to the season for the Houston Texans. They were an unwatchable offense and a defense that was just along for the ride. It was really good, but just the offense just held it back. The offense now is not perfect. Let's be clear. In the second half of this game, 3 and out. It was not a good look there by this Houston offense. Several perplexing moments for the Houston offense in the second half, but it's good enough to allow the defense to shine. And that defense is an elite unit. In this game, Patrick Mahomes, minus 0.4 EPA per dropback. That puts him 23rd on the week among quarterbacks. The two names he is between is Cam Ward and Brady Cook. You don't want to be in the Brady Cook zone if you're Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs offense, the passing offense particularly here. They're pressured 17 times, and it felt like it. According to Pro Football Focus, 17 pressures on the night they got on the Patrick Mahomes-led Chiefs offense. And again, it felt like it, man. This defense swarms. That's DeMeco Ryans' kind of catchphrase there for this team, and it shows. The secondary was on it. I'm hoping to get some coverage numbers as I'm yapping here for this team from Next Gen Stats, but we'll see if that happens. For now, we can know that the Texans defense allowed the lowest opponent pass rating in the NFL. They allow a 57.1 completion percentage, second lowest, and they got 15 interceptions. That was the second most. And like I said, these guys were hitting. The hit that Jalen Petrie had on Rashee Rice in this game, I mean, we're wearing the damn Guardian cap and everything. You're not going to see a better clean hit over the middle. It brought out the inner boomer in me. I was like, whoo boy, what a hit. Okay, this Texan defense rules. So we know that, we knew that, but let's talk about the offense here for a second. This offense, like I said, at times this year, they were just completely lost in the wilderness. I thought they were like an identity-free unit. And I'm not going to go so far as to say that the Texans offense is fixed, but I think it's salvaged itself to the point that we can start to see some good things from the players on this offense, particularly from Nico Collins, who in the first half amassed all of his production in this game. 8 targets, 4 catches, 124 yards. He had the long 53-yard reception in the coverage of Trent McDuffie, who then got hurt. I don't believe he returned to this game. Nico Collins is back. Nico Collins is awesome. He is a fantasy football wide receiver 1, and he is the only one that has a real established role in this passing game from a full-time player perspective. He ran a route on 86% of the dropbacks tonight. Dalton Schultz, 80%. Nobody else more than 49%. Jaden Higgins was number 2 among the pass catchers with a 49% route participation. Targeted on 29% of those routes, 5 looks, 3 catches, 34 yards. He was used kind of as the single wide receiver when they went to their more heavy personnel packages. So he played 27 snaps, only ran 17 routes. He's just not quite there in terms of being like a fantasy commodity. I think he has definitely shown some promise as a rookie. But this is the Nico Collins show, and everybody else kind of orbits around him. Jalen Knoll, who I'm really fond of, he only catches 2 passes here. Xavier Hutchinson catches no passes. Christian Kirk, 1 catch for 6 yards. So it's just not really anyone else in this passing game that we can trust. I don't think they're quite built out to be that just yet. The offensive line with Trent Brown in the mix, Ed Ingram playing some really good football, and Titus Howard moved into guard. It's good enough. That's all we're looking for this Texans offense. They need to be just not the 32nd ranked offensive line in the NFL, and I believe that is what they are now. So that's good enough for CJ Stroud to be able to hang in the pocket and make some plays to Nico Collins. And I will say, Stroud was under pressure in this one. I'm not going to say this was a perfect night from Stroud. He left some plays on the field in the downfield passing game that he does have to convert. But really liked his response to pressure in this one. He got out of trouble, especially on the one play when Chris Jones is trying to hawk him down. That was an impressive moment from him. So Stroud, good enough. It's not some crazy performance here. 15 completions on 31 attempts. 203 passing yards. It's not some crazy stat line from him, but it is good enough for this team to win. He completed, like I said, 15 of 31 passes, was pressured 19 times, 54.3% pressure rate. Next Gen Stats notes second highest of his career. And he had 114 yards and a touchdown while taking 3 sacks under pressure. So it was really play action early on that helped out CJ Stroud. And then we did see this offense definitely go into a funk at the beginning of the second half. That is true. I don't think this team can string together 4 awesome quarters of offense. They need to be able to string together a few drives and make plays to Nico Collins, the number 1 wide receiver, and allow that defense to cook. Because, oh man, can that defense cook, baby. And we saw it in this game tonight. Only other fantasy note here, Woody Marks handled 94% of the running back touches in this game. Nick Chubb left with injury after touching the ball just once. Dare Ogunbowale got into the mix for a goal line carry. The broadcast was even saying, I don't even know if he's ever practiced any goal line because he's barely touched the ball this year. And of course, it's a nice duo run up the middle. He just follows the hole and gets into the touchdown there. So that's a bummer if you had Woody Marks for sure. Totally understand it. But man, big night from Woody Marks, handling a ton of work in this one. So yeah, big time moment from him. 93% of the running back touches, I should say, for Woody Marks. 29 opportunities in this game. It wasn't efficient, but it was enough to just grind this game out. When they had to run clock, they were able to run it out and put the Chiefs to bed. And with that, let's transfer over to the Kansas City Chiefs here. Mike Golick said it really well tonight. Felt like we watched the end of something tonight. He said that on Twitter, did Mike Golick. Of course, Mike Golick Jr. is great. He's the man. And yeah, so that was a good tweet by him. And it's very fitting to what I think we saw in this game tonight. And I would say the only note I have here is that I feel like we've been watching the end of something for a while. And I just think people have been slow to accept what is happening with this Kansas City Chiefs team. And the team we saw tonight that lost the AFC West for the first time in 9 years. All right. It's been 9 years since we've seen someone else beside the Chiefs win the AFC West. Well, it happened. The Denver Broncos are going to win the AFC West. Shout out to the Denver Broncos. They'll play this team actually on Christmas night. So let's see how that goes. But the Broncos are going to win the AFC West. It's not going to be the Kansas City Chiefs for the first time in 9 years. And the team that we saw tonight, shoot, they've been this team for a minute now. All of the things that we saw, all the problems that we saw tonight, these have been issues. And I know we're going to say, hey, Travis Kelce doesn't drop the ball like he does and turn it back over to the team. And, Rashee Rice doesn't have 8 targets, get 1 first down, catch 4 passes. have the drops that he did in this game. I would say the problem with that is that these were all things creeping and building under the surface. And when you go against a great defense like the Houston Texans, that is going to shine a light on your sins, man, when you go against that type of unit. And that is the Chiefs' sins were on display for everybody to see. And it is too late for redemption here because this team cannot run the ball. They're banged up in the offensive line. I do want to say that. I understand they're banged up in the offensive line. Okay, that is totally a problem. Totally a problem. You go into this one banged up. Josh Simmons, your rookie left tackle, he's out for the season. You got injuries at tackle. Totally understand. Wanya Morris hurt on the first play. That just felt like, a really bad warning sign with what we're going to get from this Chiefs team all night. And that is a bad sign when you go against that Texans pass rush. However, there are so many issues here. 5 drops by the Chiefs, as we're seeing from Ben Solak here. Most of the game from Patrick Mahomes since week 11 a few years ago. Like, man, yeah, these receivers are not good. Like, they're good in a certain. I'm not going to say they're not good. Rashee Rice is a good player. Rashee Rice is a really good player, but he's not. He's a fantasy wide receiver one, but he's a limited player that has holes in his game. The drops have been a little bit quiet of a problem for him in big moments, some crushing moments against the Cowboys on Thursday night, despite the great production. And in this one, where you're going against a secondary that's filled with guys that are not what Dallas offers on the other side of things, he just showed up too small tonight. And he's the only guy that you can really count on here because we know Xavier Worthy at this point is not a target monster. We know he's a guy that can make a splash big play here or there. He had a 23-yard reception in this one. Hollywood Brown had 1 catch for 35 yards, and that was it. That was about all we heard from these mainstay Chiefs receivers. Like, this unit, it's just not good enough, and it's not the specific skills that you need to win against the secondary like what Kansas City was facing in the Houston Texans tonight. It's just not. And that has been a theme for this team all season long. That to me it's not where everything starts, but it's one of the biggest problems. I said after the Super Bowl, when they lost against the Eagles on Football 301, Nate and I did a live recap. I said, listen, we're going to come out of this game and we're going to talk about the offensive line. We're going to talk about it all offseason. And we did, and we should have. And they made moves to address that with the drafting of Josh Simmons, adding Jalen Moore in free agency. They secured Trey Smith to a long-term contract extension after franchise tagging him. They move on from Joe Thuney because they thought it was time to do that. And so we talked about the offensive line offseason. But I did say I want them to get serious about the wide receiver position. I need them to add one, quote, real wide receiver. And they didn't do it. Like, they doubled down on the small, fast guy by re-signing Marquise Brown, by adding Tyquan Thornton, to keeping Juju Smith-Schuster around to kind of be in the room a little bit as a slot guy that sort of fills in for Rashee Rice when he's suspended. The 4th rounder that they took, Jalen Royals, is another kind of project speed-based guy. They just don't have the guy in the receiver room when it's 3rd down. And I mean, talk about, you sure could have used that tonight. 3rd down, man coverage, win a tight coverage target, win on a stop route, win on a quick in breaker, a quick out route when you have good leverage. You don't have that player. They just don't. Like, Rashee Rice is really, really good in his role as a zone beater working over the middle. But you felt the absences, the holes in his game tonight. And then you have Travis Kelce, who gets 5 targets, 1 catch, 8 yards, tons of mistakes here. Noah Gray, the other tight end that's just hung around here for a while, he's making tons of mistakes. Travis Kelce, worst performance of the year tonight, and he knew it. What he was putting out on the bench, he knew it with the faces he was making, and that was just like completely epitomized this Chiefs season with how it's gone. And I don't really know what to do with this performance from this Chiefs offense because it's kind of predictable, right? I mean, you're going to, as fantasy players, we're at a point where if you're starting Travis Kelce just because you don't have, he's been your tight end 1 all season long and you're rocking with that, it's fine, but you know the expectations aren't sky high, but the floor is solid. You're starting Rashee Rice as a wide receiver 1, led the position in points per game heading into this game. We'll see about that at the end of this one. We'll recalibrate the numbers. And then it's like Pat Mahomes is a QB1, but he had his best games at the beginning of the season when he was scrambling, but he's had some good pass performances lately. It's just this weird team that we don't really have a lot of options. Even fringe-based guys you can't really count on for anything. And I think that is telling to what's happened with this team. And again, I've been talking about this on 301 with Nate for a long time as people still want to insist, like, no, this team they'll make the playoffs fine. There's so many problems here that are beyond just easy fixes. And I think this is going to take a hard and difficult look in the mirror offseason for Kansas City. It really is. And I wonder if Andy Reid at this point in his career is equipped to have those difficult conversations and those difficult moments of like, hey, is what we've been doing with this team for 13 years that he's been the Kansas City Chiefs head coach, is it the right play in today's NFL? Or do we need to get a different influence of other offenses in here? Not that we need to go away from it, what Andy's done for years successfully completely. And I am not calling for Andy Reid's job. Don't get that twisted. But I think this team is a little bit stuck in what has always worked for them. They're very insular in terms of who's on the coaching staff. Oh, we need an offensive coordinator? Well, let's bring Matt Nagy back. That's kind of that whole deal there. They keep to themselves in terms of the ideas and the philosophies offensively. And then you look at, again, who they bring in at wide receiver. It's a lot of the same archetype of players, and they kind of keep the veterans around. They're a bit like Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquise Brown, these guys. Like Tyquan Thornton's the free agent from outside the building this year, and he's running around on 26% of the dropbacks tonight. So it's just not a team that really goes outside of its own web to find new ideas, fresh playmakers. It's a strange operation that's obviously worked for them for a really long time, but I do wonder if that time has passed. I think that we need to ask some of these difficult questions about the Kansas City Chiefs in the offseason. And I think they will probably look, they're not completely eliminated from the playoffs at this point. Far be it from me to say it is over. It felt over watching that game tonight. And I think if I had to guess right now, they need to win out. They got 2 games in their division, Chargers, Broncos. Not perfect teams, but nevertheless, I wouldn't put it past them to drop 1 or 2 of those games. They got to win them all essentially, and then they got to root against the Colts, and then they got to root against the Chargers. There's a lot that's going on for this Chiefs team, and I don't have the faith that they'll do it based on what we've seen so far. So if they miss the playoffs again, I think there needs to be some difficult conversations in that building, and we need to track those from a fantasy standpoint because it should be better than this. It really should be better than this. So. Definitely a disturbing night once again for the Kansas City Chiefs offense. 10 points against a great Texans defense as your down offensive lineman. I totally get it, but Patrick Mahomes can't finish between Cam Ward and Brady Cook in the EPA per dropback results. Obviously he wasn't perfect on the night either. Yeah, he had 1 interception deep down the left sideline that was just, we're putting that play up for grabs. Probably can't do that. I am not here to say it's all he's blameless in this one, but there's a lot of problems in this Chiefs offense that have been building and kind of quietly laying in the grass for a long time. And I think you could start to see that building. You see the early signs of the illness sort of starting to manifest itself, even dating back to last year. And I don't think they fully got past it. I really don't think so. And I think the results have shown all season long. Running cold on the wrong side of variance, 1-score games, the whole deal. You know how you can avoid that? Being a bit better of an offensive operation, being a bit more talented, having a bit more dynamism beyond the same old things that you've always done, beaten zone coverage, gadgety plays, fast players, and the whole deal. And the run game being what it is. I mean, the run game is so far gone. I don't even know. That's a whole different podcast. So, yeah, difficult conversations coming for the Kansas City Chiefs.